a few years later, we're in 1423. And pretty much not anything has changed. We're still at the same point as before, but Willem IV is dead, and his son Maurits I was barely 17. He's going to take the throne. 522 and gruff diplomat. So not the best ever, but with that 5 administrative, we can still get something done. Gonna be a little bit more of a defensive reign. Just trying to consolidate, especially since he was technically illegitimate, so as you can see, my 45 legitimacy will be a bit of a pain in the rear. Not much happens for the next year or so, but at this point I have decided that we need to revoke some privileges from our estates, because it is starting to become a little bit harsh on both the corruption and, of course, my state overall. So we try to revoke something from the bourgeoisie, who are the strongest of the estates. For a starter, the rights of commerce, which gives a lot of our trade power over to the estate. That's important to revoke, so they grudgingly accept, and that's all fine by me. I believe we lose 1 stability. No, we don't even lose stability, so that is very, very lucky. Skilled administrator indeed. And the lesser nobles don't really have any privileges that we can revoke, so we just leave them be. Leave them be indeed. Now, I'm also trying to fortify up my southwestern border, because while I did win against France in a war, if France were to declare war on me and it were to be 1v1 in a way, me versus France, I would still lose. So you cannot see it right now because I'm looking at northwestern Germany, but I have constructed a fort in Luxembourg. Well, near Luxembourg. In general, thanks, Church. What will we do? Oh, we allowed the will to stand, really now. Probably should have seized the land for myself, just to get that extra bit of cash. And we get a learned religious head. Not the worst. Pretty happy about that. At least he's not disloyal. Looking at that trade modifier on the city of Groningen, unfortunately it seems like the local tax will never be quite so good, because it is apparently a quite fiercely independent little place. And finally, the greater nobles are back into being loyal, along with some extra boost to our legitimacy. This will help secure our rule. Quite good for us. We have full advisors, pretty much very good income, and a stable country. That is great. Unfortunately, it seems like our military advisor died, so I replace him. Because, well, we always want to get that extra bit of points, monarch points. And, oh god, this is loud. Plague cometh. And yeah, that's not the best. Now, we go full out in trying to prevent it. We try to close the ports, the bourgeoisie refuse, we force the closure, because we cannot allow the plague to spread to us too quickly. Also, try to restrict trade, offering compensation, I believe? No. I don't offer compensation. Why? I just hire plague doctors. Yes, that spends most of our money, but also gives us some legitimacy and reduces the damage the plague will do. So it looks like I went for the other option instead. I could still restrict trade, but now it's more expensive. Of course, that could going with force could cause a crisis. And a crisis with the bourgeoisie, as Holland or the Netherlands, would be pretty damn bad overall. So I decided to not do that. Let's see where the plague is. Getting some information just to know what is coming to us. Doesn't really seem like it is anywhere in Europe yet, so the only other option would be the Middle East. And there it is. It's in Egypt. Actually very devastating in Egypt. Completely demolishing Giza, Cairo, and looks like Alexandria as well taking a bit of a hit. So overall, the Nile Delta is ravaged by disease at this point. This will definitely hurt the trade in the region. Also, as you can see, it's spreading to Greece because of the trade routes there. Obviously, spreading along trade routes means that our trading cities along the coast are pretty much excellent targets for the Grim Reaper. As you can see, Bruges is the 6th largest city on the continent. So, of course, that is going to be pretty much a bit of a plague sponge. And that's why we went so all out on countermeasures for the plague. There are quite a lot of things that we could do with requesting an archbishopric, but it all requires a bit of a better relationship with the Pope than we do have, lots more papal influence, so there's not going to be much of a concern of ours yet. Still feudal monarchy, and our rank is still principality, I believe, because of course when we formed the Netherlands we just gained that on automatic, and now the plague is spreading throughout the Balkans overall. With that, as you can see, major center of trade that pretty much most of our cities have in Flanders. Plague is going to spread to us, and it's going to be bad unless we do something to stop it. Call to Crusade. It's going to be a bugged event, I believe, because... what? What is going on? Oh. Okay. Devilry aside. Yeah, as you can see, sending troops to fight does not take away manpower. So, of course, I mean, we might as well just do that. Can also send tithes, so money support, or let them fend for themselves and tell the Pope that the Crusades are over. But those reduce the influence with the person who called the Crusade, in this case, it is the Emperor Bohemia. And plus, of course, there was no downside. So the plague is spreading up after a few years, from 27, spreading to our trading cities. But thanks to our forward-thinking measures, we managed to avoid the worst of it. We got a moderate plague, for the most part, mild plague in some of our cities. And that is fine. It could have been worse overall. Of course, our closing of the ports and restrictions on trade will be hurting our economy throughout the next years, because those do last, I believe, up to 5 years. And it got the bourgeoisie mad at us, so overall, hurting us more than the modifiers would make us believe. But, oh well, it's fine. We're going to be alright overall. As you can see, still, our money situation is very, very strong. We have a very effective tax collection and trade, so quite a lot of money coming in for our court and our state in general. I did complete that fort, as you can see, and now that we have some manpower back up, as you can see, we have 16,000 in reserve. We can build a second army. Our first army has 5 units of infantry, 3 of cavalry, and 2 guns. I believe I tried to keep that same template in some way, but I'm not sure. Because infantry, they take a lot of casualties, but it is necessary for them to take casualties so that the guns can fire from the back row. If you don't know how the combat system works, Greek science rediscovered. We outfit an expedition. We have a chance to gain diplomatic power or lose prestige. Looks like we lost the prestige, so the expedition seems to have failed. Now, of course, yes, we're in the Renaissance, so that is going to happen. There are lots of events like these that have the chance to increase your prestige by being a patron of the arts and the sciences, etc. And our status as a sort of a big mercantile power also, I believe, increases those. And Lithuania declares war for independence. As you can see, that Polish Crimea is being occupied by Sunni zealots, and Lithuania sees a chance to rise up against Poland and get its independence. As you can see, Lithuania is huge, so they have a pretty good chance, I feel, of winning. In Anatolia, Eretna has risen as a rival of the Ottoman Empire. We still have a Serbian state and Macedonia, but most of the Balkans have fallen under the political guise of Hungary. So definitely losing their independence in favor of Pest. And that's not the best possible thing for them, but hey, they're going to have to deal with it. At this point, however, it's about time I think about war again. As you can see, I've let a few years pass, and now we are almost recovering our manpower. We've also advanced our military technology, so we have pikemen, gendarmes, or stradiotti. We go stradiotti, and still the same gun, so nothing new there. Our leader also reviews some to be quite good when it comes to fire leadership, and of course the greater nobles. We've buttered them up throughout, and so with that 40 tradition that they have, they can give us a pretty decent general. They're unfortunately disloyal, but the general, Michel, is very good. Well, not very good, but fairly decent. And the reason why I am pulling my troops to get her closer to the border with France is that France has been attacked once again by Castile and England. So, plus also Brittany, who is in their alliance. That free state alliance, I guess we could call it the Triple Alliance. Burgundy, no, not Burgundy, Brittany, sorry. Brittany, England, and Castile. I guess we could call it the Atlantic Alliance. Yes. The Atlantic Alliance has been attacking France throughout these few years, and now it is time for us to join in. So we call in Münster and Cologne, our allies. We still have a lot of cities in Flanders that are under the rule of Burgundy. We can easily come in and take some of them. The French army decides to walk around while it is retreating. So of course, for safety measures, I move in some more troops closer to the sieging army in Flinde, which is that southern province. Also our allies come in to reinforce said army, so we are in a fairly decent position to siege down the province in safety. Also our navy, which has grown to 17 light ships, can be used to blockade the port and give us a little bit of an extra edge when it comes to the siege, so that they can't supply the city by port. Unfortunately, we're taking quite a lot of casualties from disease, as is to be expected. Also, Hungary joins into the, I guess, vulture squad attacking Poland. Very unfortunate for Poland that they're getting destroyed so, but it's in Eastern Europe. We have other things to worry about. The French are building up their armies in the Pas-de-Calais region. They're trying to take that out of English hands. And of course, with their support of Burgundy, who has quite a strong army, we can't really defeat them on the field. But, and there goes Lithuania, declaring independence entirely. But, of course, they have more than one war to fight. As you can see in the west, Normandy is being occupied by the Breton army, and England is ravaging throughout Anjou in central France. So that leaves us quite free to take care of Burgundy, their Flemish possessions, quite easily. Of course, since we're the sort of weaker threat, I guess, the French AI has decided that they'd rather let us be. Aragon also jumps into the, I guess, vulture squad attacking France, of which I am part of. And they're going to go after French possession in the southwest. And at this point, the Burgundian Flanders is about to be completely taken. We can easily go ahead and capture Liege, which so far has eluded us. And completely we managed to secure the last remaining possessions that Burgundy had in the area. Unfortunately, it looks like it has gone to Cologne. That looks like Brussels. Yeah, Brussels apparently was being sieged by Cologne as a siege leader, so that's a bit unfortunate. At this point, I am sending up my cavalry west so that they can scout for French troops trying to come in and counterattack against our army, so that I have a bit of an advanced warning and I don't just get bushwhacked at random by French troops. Also, thanks to the support of Cologne, that allows me to take Picardy. Picardy is a incredibly populated region when it comes to rural population. So even without a strong city, which I believe it does have a small city, Picardy, if I click on the province, that would be even better, but still, even without too big of a city or any strong modifiers like the cities in Flanders and Holland, it is able to bring in quite a lot of money, and so of course it is going to have a lot of loot for our armies to capture. Also, I see that Paris is mostly open for the taking, but no, actually it is not open. I discover after sending my troops closer that it is being attacked by the Englishmen, it seems. But we do take Picardy, and that's quite good. At this point, I move my army a little bit closer to my other troops. We take Brie in central France. Is that where the Brie cheese comes from? I do not know. But anyways, we do take the cheese production facilities, and now we have central France under stranglehold. Beauce also falls to us, as does... Can't read that name because my army is in the way. But anyways, all these provinces are falling. The French army comes in and sieges Luxembourg, and looks like our university students are mobilized and marched off to war because, yes, war is no excuse to drop out of school. Doesn't really give you a lot of administrative power, diplomatic power. So I just marched them off to war to get some extra manpower. So even the students being mobilized for the war effort, even though we don't really need the extra help. I merged these two armies. Of course, these are both the main forces. One of them gets in there first, but we managed to completely smash the French army. My baptism of fire. Those arrogant Frenchmen didn't even know we were coming. They haven't even bothered to set scouts or pickets. We just marched through the woods at night and emerged a mere 100 paces from the camp at dawn. I'll never forget the sight of the camp as we stormed it. Men trying to find their spears in confusion, camp followers scurrying like rats to get out of the way, tents overturned by charging horses. It was a slaughter. In the battle for Luxembourg, the survivors are taken captive, of course, and we now have a completely open... Milan offers a loan. The bankers of Italy. We have a completely open path towards Burgundy. Bar, who is also an ally, I believe it's a vassal of Burgundy, decides that it is going to try to defend its home territory, but it is, of course, completely outmatched by our royal army. Rather, our princely army. And of course, we're sieging Bar, we're also sieging provinces in Burgundy. Northern France is completely occupied by our troops or by Breton armies, it seems. Paris has fallen to the English, and now only Burgundy is left with any kind of armies. I believe it's about high time to get some, at least measure of what the French would be able to give to us as a peace treaty. Of course, we can't take Brussels because it's been occupied by Cologne, and so unfortunately, that it is not going to be anything that we can do. We cannot give it to Cologne because Cologne would not be able to core it. Of course, they also have subjects that we could try to release, but hey, we're still not trying to dismantle France. We're still essentially in a reconquest war for our own claims in Flanders. Now that Barra, I thought about taking Barra, which is the capital of Bar, but I decided not to, even though it is imperial territory. So taking that would have given us the imperial reconquest claim on it, so it wouldn't have been unlawful territory. We still would have had to core it, but it could have been a good way to expand. Artacy will not be released, it looks like. The French are still a little bit not happy about that. So I just decided in the end, we're going to go to the monetary gain. As we do enjoy to do so, we get a lot of ducats. And of course, we have looted all throughout northeastern France. So even more ducats due to loot. We're up to 700 in our treasury, which is of course extremely good. And relatively bloodlessly, we've only lost about 10,000 men in this war. We can repay Milan's loan instantly. Relatively bloodlessly, we've managed to both expand ourselves onto some very good land in Flanders, completely crush the power of Burgundy in the area, and of course weaken France as well, while also getting rich. So this was, I believe, a very good war, especially because it was done, again, without much of a cost to ourselves. So we raise claims to Pas-de-Calais, because at this point, with, I guess, the Atlantic Pact having won so many wars against France, and with us being so near English territories in the area, and of course England being just across the pond, just across the channel, of course England is starting to become a bit of a threat. So we want to cut them down to size as well. Construct a fort in Liege, which is now ours. Of course it is, I believe, an upgrade to a previous French fort in the area, thanks to the ducats that we were able to extort from France. And we can also upgrade the roads in Bruges. Bruges has a road network, but it is only the first basic road network. We want to improve it, of course, because in these big cities that also have trade, roads do improve both urban gravity and trade power. So it is very important for you to upgrade them. Of course, roads can also be built with the help of the local province, so we convinced them to contribute wealth. Now, a few years later, Lithuania has been ravaging throughout the east and has managed to take a lot of territory from Poland and the Crimea. And we get a culture shift in Friesland. Thankfully, now it is Dutch culture rather than Frisian culture, which is still not accepted. Even though we did manage to get Flemish as an accepted culture, still a bit shy away from getting Frisian. And this is the end of the French-English War. England manages to grab itself Picardy and Normandy. So overall, a very good war for England as well. But they did pay a bit of a heavier price. They're going to take a little longer to recover from it than we will. So at this point, as you can see, all these truces will last for quite a long time. And we were trying to build a spy network in England, but unfortunately, the spy was discovered. So unfortunately, we can't really do much in there. Bohemia is still the emperor, with the support of most of the Elector princes. But, yeah, we're thinking about the emperorship a lot more. Now, to get it, we need to gain at least 4 electors on our side. And so far, Bohemia has control of all of them, but the imperial authority is quite low. It was at 25. So a little bit of extra expansion towards the empire does make a little bit of sense for us at this point, because we expanded in the southwest as much as we could. So we're going to expand inland at this point. We still have 18,000 men in our army, and we expand that to 19,000, getting a extra cavalry unit. And of course, What I was thinking, also Navarra gets annexed by Castile. Once again, the Atlantic Pact expands, which is a bit of a problem. Yes, at this point, with our cities growing so much, as you can see, The Hague is the largest regional city, as is Bruges. So overall, that is quite good for us. Of course, I believe that is also because, yeah, all those regions are entirely owned by us. Both the Low Countries and Belgium are entirely owned by us. So it's not like they have any rivals that they can compete with. So the two cities able to expand freely. Quite good. Yes, what I was thinking is to attack Trier and Cologne, because those are both electors, and so vassalizing both of them in my plans would have given me 2 votes by default. Of course, things don't always go according to plan, as you will soon see. Bruges is hindered by the lack of a natural harbor, which does not hinder The Hague, but The Hague is still a little tiny bit smaller than Bruges. So I'm kind of pondering how to expand it. Eventually I decide to just let it go and focus on the war. I hire a commandant who increases discipline. Of course, discipline being quite the important stat to inflict more casualties upon the enemy. And at this point, I can call in... I cannot call in any of my allies, but I do call in an enemy as a co-belligerent. They have 2 allies, Cologne and Trois-Évêchés, which is that bishopric that has those weird borders in green near Lorraine. Of course, their army is not the strongest, but also not the weakest. I send in all of my units to siege all the provinces belonging to my rivals in Germany. Of course, Münster is my ally, so they're going to give me military access through which I can attack the easternmost city that Cologne rules over. And at this point, I can also use my army to chase down the Trois-Évêchés forces. I, of course, go into their city. Well, probably not a city, just a castle. Easily destroying their army. Looks like about 5,000 men. They will probably fall in the woods, just like the French did just a couple, well, no, or, yeah, a fair few years ago. Of course, they are no match for France, they're no match for us. And also Cologne tries to recruit some extra soldiers, but it is not enough. We come in and finish them off entirely. Now, it is worth noting that Cologne is technically our ally at this point, but I decide to bring them into the war by attacking Trier, who was their ally, so that we can get the vassalization on them. As that would be quite a good thing for us to do. Trois-Évêchés goes down to our sieging forces, and now we can dictate terms. We're at 99% war score, of course, because we occupied their town. We decide to take some trade concessions, plus annulment of rivalries and cash. For both prestige and monetary gains, this seems like the best peace deal. And at this point, I have a fairly good grip on the northern cities as well. Cologne is about to lose its easternmost terrain of Westphalen. And of course, it goes down. So Cologne is now officially going to be our vassal. Essentially legalizing a state of affairs that has been going on for quite some time. I mean, they weren't our vassal, but we were a great power right near them, bordering them, and they were fairly small. So at this point, it is just obvious that we're going to be vassalizing them now. We don't take any money from them, because since they were already our ally earlier and now they're our vassal, we're not going to have the worst relations possible. I mean, we did force vassalize them. That is pretty bad. As you can see, minus 29. But at the same time, we improve relations, of course, to get the vote, because relations are pretty much the biggest part of whether or not people are going to vote for you in the imperial elections. Again, we don't want to strip them bare of their cash, because they're going to have to rebuild their army eventually so that they can fight for us, you know, as a vassal. So at this point, that just means vassalizing them and not taking any coin. We can take quite a lot of coin out of Trier, however. We do not do that. We just end their rivalries and get the prestige, just fine. And of course, now we can also get some extra ducats. There is an unfortunate side. I didn't really expect something to happen. As you can see, yes, coalition. We have stepped a little bit too far for the German princes. So at this point, we have a pretty huge coalition on our hands. As you can see, the signatures are flying in. I wonder who's the leader of that coalition. It looks like it is, well, they have Brandenburg and Bremen as the two main states in the coalition.